Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, we chat with actress and writer Serah Henesey about her new film, The Surprise Visit, available on VOD now. Serah is an award-winning actress with an established career in Europe, and after accruing a huge following and success on Turkish television, she moved to Los Angeles to pursue a more international career. Since then, she has enjoyed roles on Ray Donovan, Scandal, Entourage, and more. We discuss the challenges of her role as Juliette in The Surprise Visit, how the story was developed, and the challenges of producing the film. The Surprise Visit is available to stream now.
Hi, Liz. This is Serah. How are you?
Doing so well. Thank you so much for making time today. I really appreciate it. This particular film, The Surprise Visit, is one that is based on a true story and one that you had a hand in developing that story. Can you talk a little bit about, I think we've all read something in a newspaper and thought that would be a fantastic movie, but anybody who's ever sat down to develop a story has run into that wall of there's a million ways to tell any given story, and not necessarily all of them will recapture the spark that it lit for you. So can you talk a little bit about not just getting interested in it yourself, but roadblocks and problems that you ran into trying to get it into a shape where other people caught the same fire?
So originally we had a different idea to shoot something else on this state that we shot The Surprise Visit on, and it involved children. And so we figured out very early on, because we were going to start shooting in March last year, and then the pandemic hit, and that we weren't going to be able to shoot with kids during a pandemic. So we still wanted to shoot something very much, and but we obviously had to keep a tight cast and crew, because we didn't want to work on a set with 50 people. This is pre-vaccines, and when things are really, really bad. So we started off with the idea of The Strangers is like a favorite horror film of mine. And we thought, well, that would be great if we could find an idea like that, because obviously there's only two people really in the film and everybody else is in masks. I mean, yeah. How perfect. But obviously, we couldn't go ahead and make the same film. By the way, our film obviously has nothing to do with that, but that was kind of the starting point. And then my then boyfriend and now husband, Nathan, kept telling us, well, there was this theft on this property, and there were two drug addicts, and one of them was the son of the groundskeeper, and they came and robbed the place. And he kept telling us the story, and we were like, okay, well, there's a story in there somewhere, but, otherwise it's just a theft, and it's not that, filmic. I'm sure it was very traumatic for everybody involved, but, so we started off with that. Sorry?
I said it, but it doesn't necessarily rise to the, 3-act structure and a real, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we started off there, and then I threw in some ideas of, well, what if they robbed the house thinking it was empty, but it wasn't? So that makes it a little bit more interesting. And then what if something happened to them? And so, so then it went into a tale of kind of a survival, really. And, if you were of sound mind and, you harmed somebody by accident, you would call the cops and say, hey, there's been an accident. But, we're talking about two drug addicts, they're not they're a bit morally, tainted. So, and their judgment is impaired, and what decisions would they make? And so it was a kind of exploration of ideas, and then, myself, and then Nathan, and then the director and the writer, and we all kind of got together and brainstormed, and the film was based on a true story, but the ending, we obviously changed a little bit.
And so when it came time to then get in front of the camera with it, can you talk a bit about your role in the film?
So I play Juliette, who is the daughter of the owners of the estate. And she's, obviously comes from an affluent background, but she's kind. She's thoughtful. She's sweet. And she's at the top of the film. She's already in mourning. She's already in a sad place. And then she plans a surprise visit to surprise her mother. And then there's some more sadness that follows. Have you watched the film, just out of interest?
I have not gotten to see it yet. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Oh, okay. Okay, wonderful. So, and then something really horrific happens to her, and so she's already, kind of in this lost place, as you are when you're mourning somebody near, and then something really terrifying happens. So she's at the top of the film. She's kind of lost and in disbelief and in shock of all these things that are happening, and she comes from a protected kind of family and background. And, she hasn't been, she's a lawyer, but she hasn't been maybe confronted with people from a harsher background, let's just put it that way. So there's an element where she's in shock, but then she has to pull her wits together and figure out how she's going to survive this. So as it progresses, she comes from this gentle, loving, kind woman, and then as it progresses, she turns into she goes into survival mode, and yeah. So without giving away too much.
Yeah, just from the trailer, it looked like it blended two, I don't know if they're fully genres, but kind of two types of film that I like very much. Like you'd mentioned, The Strangers, but just more those type of films of a siege film, or being stuck in a small location with people, that pressure cooker. But then also, I am drawn to crime films where two people who are maybe not the best at their game here continue to have plans go wrong, and then just have to make the best out of a dwindling set of continually terrible options. There's just something about that inevitable just careening towards a bad idea that makes for a very compelling crime film to me.
It's just like one bad idea after another, right? And it's this kind of snowball effect, and you kind of see it coming, but there's no way of really escaping it, because
they'd have to be different people to get out of, to not be making these choices. And there's just something.
And then I also added some extra motivations for every character. So again, at the top of the film, we find out the drug addict couple, the young girl, is pregnant. So she has her own motivations of doing what she's doing. And then the drug addict, son, obviously, he has his own. So you kind of feel for everybody in the film, because they're lost in their own world and they're struggling to survive, and they don't have food to eat, and they're living in an RV, in a broken down RV, and they have a drug addiction problem. They have no money, and they have a baby on the way. So it's everybody has their own motivations, and you kind of sympathize with all of them, but when their will to survive kind of juxtaposes my will to survive, then who's going to win? We don't know. I guess you're going to have to watch the movie.
And so putting together the cast and everything, this is your first film to carry the producer role, is that correct?
Yes, it is. I've worked in production, in different facets of production before, but I've never produced a film from A to Z myself.
Was there any piece of the job that you were just surprised to discover existed, or hadn't seen anyone really do before, hadn't noticed anyone really doing before?
Yeah. Well, I was familiar. I mean, I've been making films for 20 years as an actor, so most of the on-set stuff I had a good handle on. Like I knew the pre-production stuff, I knew the on-set stuff, and those I could handle. The post-production stuff was things that I was not familiar with at all, because as an actor, you're never exposed to any one of those. And it's very technical. So it was like a whole language. I was like, are they speaking in Japanese? I don't know what they're saying, you know, especially when we got the delivery list from our, you know, our distributors. I was like, I looked at it and I was like, I don't know what half of these are. Like I knew all the marketing stuff, obviously that stuff I was paid delivering, but the tech and the legal stuff. But the technical stuff, I just didn't went, ooh, okay, this is another language. I'm going to pass this on to somebody else. So that stuff I wasn't familiar with, but luckily we had some help with that. And then again, I think choosing to film in Virginia was a big challenge, because I mean, any other time of the year, you know, it would have been fine. But again, during a pandemic, and, you know, it's not like it's a production hub like New York or LA where you can find, you know, a wardrobe person, you can find a production assistant, you can find a, you know, an art director. We you know, it was a real challenge finding crew. And I remember, I think it was about 2 weeks before we were supposed to start shooting, and I helped cast the film. That part I was fine with, and obviously, you know, as an actor, I know all that side of things, and the writing and all that stuff I was familiar with. But, you know, finding crew in Virginia, in rural Virginia, because we didn't want to obviously fly anybody in, because we didn't want people flying in the pandemic. Yeah. And also, you know, it was a kind of a moderately low budget. So we didn't want, you know, so we wanted to find as many people as we could locally. And so that was a bit of a challenge. And 2 weeks before we started shooting, I still didn't have half of my crew in place. And I went into panic mode. I was like, you know, I'm always the kind of can-do person. Like, I'm like, impossible is not a word that exists for me. But those last 2 weeks, I was stressed. I was like, I have bitten off more than I can chew. I don't think I'm going to be able to pull this one off. I had some moments I didn't sleep a lot. Let's just put it that way. And then I think it was the grace of God, and obviously Nick Leon was our director, but he also produced, and he kind of pushed me in the right direction for, you know, with everything, with the production stuff. And then I had some help and support, you know, from Nathan, and then from our one of our other producers. And so we pulled it together. We managed.
Well, I can't wait to see it. And you did pull it off. I mean, folks are going to get to go check it out January 14th in theaters and on VOD. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it should be fun. The trailer of it, like I say, it definitely hits the center of a Venn diagram of several different types of movies that I like. So excited.
It does, doesn't it? I think we did a good little job. I mean, most people, the first film they produce, it doesn't really see the light of day, and I'm a little bit proud, not, you know, in an egotistic way, but like I'm kind of just really happy and excited that, you know, we made a solid thriller film that, you know, and it got picked up by a big distributor, and it's gotten some good reviews so far. That we've gotten some reviews that were very, you know, good, and it just made my day.
Well, I can't wait to watch it, and I'm going to have to sit down again with you for another interview, just to talk about doing sitcoms in another language and all of the intricacies of making comedy work in other markets. I'm sure are some interesting stories.
Oh, there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories. I've had TV shows in London, Germany, Holland, Istanbul. I've shot several films in Bulgaria. And it's interesting. And, you know, people don't really understand what the Turkish market is really like. Turkey is the second biggest exporter of TV and film content in the world after the U.S.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So it's huge. And those TV shows are watched everywhere, in Latin America, in Eastern Europe, in Russia, in the Middle East. And like I remember I was walking down the street one day with two big stars of a film I was making in Bulgaria with, and I had Bulgarian people running down the street screaming my name, and these two big stars, and and I'm just like a little nobody here, I'm not known in the U.S. These two stars don't know who I am or what I've done, and they turned around to look at me, and they were like, "Who are you again?" And I was like, I'm a little bit known in these parts of the world.
I'm the soccer of acting. You'll catch on, U.S. You'll know me.
Yeah, right. At some point, maybe, I don't know. Yeah. So it's been an interesting journey.
Like I say, folks can go check out Surprise Visit on VOD or in the theater January 14th, and I think it should be fun. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. Thank you so much.
TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener-supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.